Imagine this. A fire alarm goes off. Loud, urgent, impossible to ignore. But there's no fire, no smoke, no real danger. It goes off when you light a candle, when you open a door, when you try something new. At first, you check, you panic, you stop, and then suddenly, you change your behavior. You stop lighting the candle, you stop opening the door, you stop moving. Not because you don't want warmth, don't need light, or the doors are broken, but because the alarm is simply unbearable. Self-sabotage isn't a flaw. It's your mind trying to protect you, and that's exactly why willpower never works. If you keep sabotaging yourself, the pattern doesn't disappear. It spreads into your work, relationships, money, and health. In this video and the next, we'll break down the top hidden reasons behind self-sabotage, its psychological roots, and the situations that lock this pattern in place. And if you stay with me till the end, you'll be able to identify your own cause and follow a practical blueprint to finally break the loop for good. So, before we dive into the reasons, let's look at what's happening on a neurological level. If we look at brain evolution scientifically, your brain wasn't designed to push you forward. It's designed to make sure you hear the alarm. That fire alarm was a great idea, by the way. Thousands of years ago, it went off when danger showed up. Cortisol spiked. You ran. You survived. Perfect system. Except the world changed. The alarm system didn't. In the modern, chaotic world, it goes off when you face uncertainty or try something new, when you get visible or attempt to change. Not because any of that is physically dangerous, but because, to your brain, it's unfamiliar. And to your brain, anything unfamiliar equals danger. So the alarm rings, and your brain does what it's always done best. It stops you. And that's, my friends, how self-sabotage starts. So why do we keep doing this to ourselves? Let's break down the 12 most common reasons behind self-sabotage. And heads up, listen closely, because one of these might sound very familiar, and when it does, it'll make a lot of sense. Reason number 1, inner conflict. That's when one part wants the goal, another part pulls the brake. Inner conflict happens when different parts of your brain want different things. One part of you wants the goal. It sees the logic. It understands the benefits. It's ready to move. And another part quietly disagrees. Not because it's lazy or hates you, but because it's focused on your safety. Neuroscientifically, this is a clash between two systems. The system that plans, decides, and sets goals, and the one that scans for risk and uncertainty. But when those two aren't aligned, the one that scans for risk to keep you safe usually wins. So it no longer feels like you're making a choice. It feels like you're stuck, confused, and drained, as if you're fighting yourself for no clear reason. That's inner conflict, not a personality flaw, just two signals pulling in opposite directions. And until that conflict is acknowledged, self-sabotage becomes the compromise. It's your brain's way of dealing with uncertainty. Instead of jumping into the unknown, it creates all kinds of friction and distractions, not to hurt you, but to keep you from stepping into something it can't fully predict. Reason number 2, unconscious patterns. It's one of those I do it again before I even realize it kind of things. Most of the time, self-sabotage doesn't happen consciously. You don't just sit there and decide to mess things up thinking, oh, great idea, let me ruin this. It happens because your brain runs on patterns you didn't actively choose, patterns you learned over time, patterns that once helped you cope, avoid stress, or stay safe. Neuroscientifically, your brain loves efficiency. If a certain reaction worked before, even once, it got stored as a shortcut. And shortcuts run fast. They run before logic, before intention, before awareness. So when something feels even slightly uncomfortable or uncertain, your brain doesn't stop to evaluate. It just defaults to the familiar response. Delay, distraction, avoidance, overthinking, anything it can use to escape. Not because it's the best option, but because it's the known one. That's why self-sabotage often feels automatic, like you're watching yourself do it from the outside. Like, why did I just do that? That wasn't a lack of willpower. That was an unconscious pattern running the show. And until those patterns are brought into awareness, your brain will keep repeating them. Why? Not to hurt you, but because it doesn't know another way yet. But the good news is, as these patterns were learned, they can be unlearned. Whatever we do to ourselves unconsciously can be unlearned using a conscious approach. Reason number 3. The hidden belief loop. This is when I'm not good enough keeps getting proven on repeat. Ever told yourself something like, I'm not good enough, not smart enough, or I'll mess it up anyway? Ever compared yourself to someone smarter, faster, or more experienced? Of course you did. We all do. But here's the trick. You say this once, your brain registers it as a signal. You say it twice, it starts to stick. You say it 3 times, it's almost like a spell. Your brain is now enchanted by these words and the new beliefs you just accepted for, let's be honest, no obvious reason. That's how an unwanted pattern sneaks in and becomes a foundation for self-sabotage later on. Here's the crazy part. None of what we tell ourselves sounds dramatic, but somehow it feels true. Why? Because when it comes from us, we don't second guess it. We are the only people we believe without questioning it. Make sense? Neuroscientifically, beliefs work like filters. Your brain uses them to predict outcomes and save energy. So if at some point your brain learned that trying led to shame, rejection, or failure, it stored a simple rule: don't try too hard. Now every new opportunity gets filtered through that loop. You hesitate, over-prepare, procrastinate, or worse, quit early. You stress over meaningless little things, not because you actually can't do it, but because the belief is already writing the ending without your conscious participation. And that's why this loop keeps repeating. Each time you let the scenario play out, each time you stop yourself from moving forward, the belief feels confirmed. Your mind adds a symbolic check mark next to it. See? I knew it. And just like that, self-sabotage becomes proof, not of reality, but of a belief that never got questioned. Reason number 4, fragility from perfection pressure. This belief takes shape when, somewhere along the way, your brain learns a rule. If I fail, I lose value. So instead of trying and risking a messy outcome, you aim for perfect timing, perfect conditions, perfect version of yourself. And if perfect isn't possible, you just don't start. Instead, you suddenly have time for anything but not this. Your brain decides this is a great moment to learn how to train a wild hippopotamus, bake sourdough from scratch, or reorganize your entire life in Notion. You'll do literally anything else, just not start. Ever wondered why? Neuroscientifically, this creates fragility. When your sense of worth is tied to performance, any mistake feels dangerous. So your brain does something very clever. It quits first. Because quitting protects your identity. You didn't fail, you just didn't try yet. Oh, that favorite word, trying, that our brain loves so much, right? So as a result, the fantasy of potential stays intact. Your mind keeps thinking, I could have done great. If I really tried, I'd succeed. But the cost of that protection is movement, growth, momentum. In the end, you think perfection pressure makes you better, but it's an illusion, hidden in a wrap of your brain wanting to be careful instead. And careful looks a lot like self-sabotage. Reason number 5, low distress tolerance. That's when discomfort feels unbearable. Not dangerous, not impossible, just ugh. Your brain feels the tiniest bit of tension, confusion, uncertainty, awkwardness, boredom, and immediately goes, nope, absolutely not. Why? Neuroscientifically, this is about tolerance, how much discomfort your nervous system thinks it can handle before it needs an escape. Therefore, if that tolerance is low, even normal effort feels like too much. So instead of staying with the task, you leave. You check your phone, grab a snack, you suddenly remember an email you must answer right now. You open a new tab, or 7. Not because the task is hard, but because the feeling that comes with it is uncomfortable. Because your brain isn't asking, is this important? It's asking, how fast can we make this feeling go away? So, escaping works, at least for a moment. The discomfort temporarily drops and quick relief kicks in. Your nervous system relaxes, which teaches your brain one very bad pattern. Avoidance helps. So the next time discomfort shows up, escape becomes the default response. That's low distress tolerance. Not weakness, not laziness, just a brain that hasn't learned how to stay with discomfort long enough for it to pass. And over time, that escape habit quietly turns into self-sabotage. Reason number 6, fear of the goal or fear of the consequences. This one is sneaky because on the surface, you know you want the goal, you want the promotion, the money, you want the freedom and the result. But your brain knows that success doesn't just bring rewards, it brings responsibility, along with expectations and visibility. More people watching, more people having opinions, and more people expecting things from you. Neuroscientifically, your brain's job is to always calculate the cost, not just rewards. And when the cost feels unclear or overwhelming, it hesitates. So instead of asking, do I want this? Your brain asks, what happens after I get it? What if I can't maintain it? What if I disappoint people? What if I'm expected to keep delivering at this level? It basically wants to know what's in it for me ahead of time. And suddenly, the goal doesn't feel exciting anymore. It feels heavy. So you slow down, you delay, miss deadlines. You stay just under the finish line without crossing it. Why? Well, not because you're afraid to fail, but because some part of you is afraid to succeed. Because as long as you don't reach the goal, your brain doesn't have to deal with what comes next. And that's how fear of consequences quietly turns into self-sabotage. Reason number 7, imposter fear. It's that voice inside your mind saying, soon they'll find out I'm not that capable. It keeps playing the same song on repeat. They will see my incompetence. They will judge my abilities. Any minute now, they'll figure it out. Basically, your inner voice is telling you that you're not that capable, that you got lucky, that you somehow slipped through the cracks, and the whole world is about to uncover this big truth. On the outside, everything looks fine. You look fine, you're doing the work, you're showing up and getting results, but inside, your brain is waiting to be exposed, like you are committing some kind of heavy crime and deserving a punishment instead of reward. Why does this happen? Neuroscientifically, this comes from a mismatch. You're growing faster than your self-image can update. Your skills expanded, your role expanded, but your internal identity is still catching up. Therefore, instead of thinking, I learned this, your brain goes, I'm pretending. And once that fear kicks in, self-sabotage becomes a safety move. You over-prepare, over-explain, and avoid all opportunities where you might be seen, or you just procrastinate, just enough. So if something goes wrong, you can say, well, I wasn't really trying anyway. Because if you fail while fully showing up, that feels dangerous. So your brain tries to protect you from the horrifying moment of being exposed for your imaginary crime. And no, your brain doesn't think that you're actually incapable. It's because your nervous system hasn't accepted the new level of reality. It begins to help you sabotage yourself. And as long as this pattern of fear runs quietly in the background, self-sabotage keeps you just visible enough to function, but never achieve your full potential. Reason number 8. Fear of envy, rejection, or abandonment. If I rise, I might lose people. Somewhere deep down, your brain is running this quiet calculation. If you grow, you might outgrow someone. If you succeed, someone might feel uncomfortable. If you change, you might not belong the same way anymore. And that scares the nervous system, because for the brain, connection equals safety. Belonging means survival. Being part of the group once meant staying alive. So when growth threatens that connection, even in subtle ways, your brain gets nervous. Why this happens? Neuroscientifically, this is about social safety. Your brain constantly scans not just for physical danger, but for relational risk. Will they still like me? Will I still fit in? Will I be judged, envied, or quietly pushed away? Therefore, instead of moving forward freely, you shrink a little. You downplay your wins. You stay smaller than you could be. And you hesitate to fully step into your potential, not because you don't want success, but because success feels like it comes with a social cost. And sometimes self-sabotage becomes a way to stay connected, to stay familiar, to stay safe inside relationships that once mattered. Your brain isn't trying to hold you back. It's trying to make sure you don't end up alone. But the problem is, when growth is traded for belonging, you slowly abandon yourself instead. And that's how fear of envy, rejection, or abandonment quietly turns into self-sabotage and leads to a great deal of unhappiness later on. Number 9, comfort in staying small. To your brain, small equals safe, invisible, and not judged. Somewhere along the way, it quietly learned this equation. If I stay small, nothing bad happens. No expectations, no spotlight, no opinions flying in from all directions. And honestly, from your brain's perspective, that sounds amazing. But why is it doing it? Neuroscientifically, this is about threat avoidance. Visibility means exposure. Exposure means judgment. Judgment means potential rejection. So your nervous system goes, yeah, nope. Let's not. And you don't go all in. You don't fully show up. You don't raise your hand, speak up, or take up space. You just keep it to yourself to stay below the radar. Not because you lack ambition or you don't want more, but because staying small feels calm, predictable, and manageable for everyone. Here's the tricky part. Your brain doesn't experience potential the way you do. It doesn't care about your inner ambitions and who you could become. It cares about not being attacked emotionally, socially, psychologically. So it convinces you that shrinking is smart, that staying quiet is strategic, that blending in is safer than standing out. But guess what? Over time, that temporary safety strategy turns into a lifestyle. You don't fail, but you also don't move. And that's how comfort in staying small slowly turns into a strong pattern of self-sabotage. Reason number 10, learned dependence. Have you heard of the term inner child? It's widely used in the world of psychology, but here's the thing. Your brain is also your inner child who wants to feel safe, cared for, and protected. To your brain, being incapable doesn't mean being weak. It means I'm safe and I'm not alone. There was a time in your life when your nervous system learned a quiet lesson. When I struggle, someone steps in. When I can't, someone helps. When I'm overwhelmed, someone takes care of things for me. And that felt safe. So the brain connected the dots. Independence equals pain. Dependence equals relief. Why does this happen? Neuroscientifically, this comes from early conditioning. If support, attention, or emotional safety arrived only when you were were struggling, confused, or not capable enough, your brain stored that as a survival strategy. It learned that every time something feels too difficult, you need to rely on external resources for survival, not your own, which in turn made you fully dependent on that source. And now your brain limits its own capabilities to a level just below too difficult. Anything beyond that, I'm out. Therefore, later in life, without even realizing it, you might delay, underperform, or act unsure, not because you can't handle things, because staying a little stuck keeps support nearby, it keeps expectations lower, it keeps responsibility shared, and it keeps you from being fully on your own. Here's the uncomfortable part. Your brain isn't trying to sabotage you, it's trying to make sure you're not abandoned with too much on your plate. So instead of stepping fully into your capability, it subtly pulls you back into a familiar role, the one where someone else or some other source fills in the gaps. And over time, that learned dependence quietly turns into self-sabotage, because growth requires standing on your own feet, but your nervous system might still believe that safety only exists when someone else is holding you up, which, by the way, is a complete myth. Reason number 11, moral masochism. That's when suffering feels like virtue and ease feels wrong. Like if it's hard, it must be right. If it hurts, it must mean something. And if it's easy, suspicious. Definitely suspicious. Somewhere along the way, your brain learned this rule. Good things are earned through struggle. Rest is laziness. Ease is cheating. How does moral masochism form? Neuroscientifically, this often comes from conditioning. If approval, love, or praise showed up only when you were exhausted, overworked, or sacrificing yourself, your nervous system linked pain with worth. So now, effort alone isn't enough. It has to cost you something. You choose the harder path. You overcomplicate simple things. You carry more than you need to. And if something starts to feel smooth or aligned, your brain goes, wait, this feels too good. Something's wrong. So it creates friction, more tasks, more pressure, more suffering. Not because you enjoy pain, but because pain feels familiar. It feels earned. It feels morally correct. Ease, on the other hand, feels undeserved, like you're skipping steps, like you didn't pay enough for it. And that's how moral masochism quietly turns into self-sabotage. You don't let things be easier, even when they could be, because deep down, your nervous system still believes that goodness must hurt. Reason number 12, approach avoidant wiring attachment pattern. This pattern is essentially a push and pull pattern. You know what you want, but when you're too close, you gotta get out. At a distance, everything feels fine. The idea is exciting, the goal looks right, but the moment it becomes real, reachable, tangible, close, the nervous system pulls the brakes. Neuroscientifically, this isn't about risk, it's about loss. For this nervous system, dependence equals pain. Not inconvenience, not discomfort, pain that feels unbearable. The fear isn't, what if I fail? The fear is, what if I lose this and I won't survive it? Just like an avoidant attachment in relationships, wanting someone feels okay, getting close feels exciting, but relying on them, trusting that bond, that's where the fear kicks in. Because closeness creates something dangerous for this psyche, something to lose, and loss feels catastrophic. So the same pattern transfers into success, goals, achievement. Reaching the top means attachment, staying there means dependence, and dependence means, what if it all collapses? What if I fall? What if I can't handle the loss? So instead of risking that pain, the system chooses the only option it knows how to regulate. Don't fully arrive. Get close, but not too close. Touch the finish line, then step away. Quit right before the pedestal. Not because success isn't wanted, but because holding it feels psychologically impossible. Because living with the pedestal, with visibility, expectation, love, admiration, and knowing it could all be taken away feels like too much to survive. So it feels safer to never fully attach, never fully trust, never fully arrive. And that's how fear of loss, disguised as avoidance, keeps pulling you away right before the finish line, turning it into a powerful pattern of self-sabotage. And you're the one who handed the power to it. These were the 12 reasons showing how self-sabotage isn't just controlling your life, but quietly spreads into every area of success. If you recognized yourself in even one of them, that's great news. Congratulations, you're on the right path. Because once you can name the pattern, it's now a matter of reframing it properly, which I will teach you how to do in the next video. Thank you for watching. In the next video, we will look in detail at steps to break the loop of self-sabotage. I will also give you a powerful blueprint to walk away with that can effectively help you dismantle self-sabotaging beliefs that your brain preciously collected over the years, like a delicate French painter obsessively hoarding rare horsehair brushes. Meanwhile, if this helped, even a bit, you know the drill. One quick tap from you, a big win for us, and a friendly nudge to the algorithm. Really appreciate you being here. And if you're ready to get unstuck, stay with us, because a lot more is coming.